Hello and welcome to The Excerpt. I'm Dana Taylor. What does it take to be a successful international diplomat? For some, the secret is a distinctive coat of black and white fur and a love of bamboo. The China Wildlife Conservation Association and the Smithsonian National Zoo have reached a 10-year agreement that will bring 2 new giant pandas to the U.S. by the end of the year. The announcement came just 6 months following the departure of their last 2 pandas. What do we know so far about this latest installment of panda diplomacy? We're joined now by National Zoo Director Brandie Smith. Thanks for joining us, Brandie.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me.
First, can you introduce our audience to the 2 new pandas that will soon be headed to D.C.? Who are we getting?
We have 2 young pandas that are coming here. Bao Li, who is a young male, and a lot of people are especially excited about him because he is the son of Bao Bao, who is one of the pandas who was born here at the National Zoo. And Qing Bao is our young female giant panda.
Pandas are known for having very distinct and often engaging personalities. What do we know about these 2 so far?
So they are very different. We know that Bao Li is very adventurous. He's very athletic. He's definitely going to be a handful for us, a typical, just kind of like a playful young boy. And Qing Bao is a lot more thoughtful, I guess. So she's a little more calm, a little more thoughtful, a little more deliberate. One of my favorite things is we have keepers who have visited China. So veterinarian and the keeper who's visited China to start to get to know these giant pandas. So we're finding out a lot about these animals, about their personalities, so we can make sure that we're ready to welcome them in the best way possible.
As you know, back in the 80s, New York City Mayor Ed Koch was successful in lobbying to bring pandas to the Bronx Zoo for a 6-month stay. Who determined which zoo these new pandas would call home for the next 10 years? What can you share about that process?
Well, we have a deep history with giant pandas. They first came here in the 1970s after a visit from President Nixon then. His wife, Pat Nixon, very famously was the person who facilitated the discussions on giant pandas and welcomed them here. And they were a state gift at that time. Things are a little different now because now what we enter into is a conservation and research agreement. And so we essentially, based upon our history, based upon our long-term, kind of collegial relationship with our colleagues in China, we put together essentially, a research, a breeding, a sustainability plan, and work together to benefit the conservation of the species.
I did want to ask about the history of panda diplomacy and what China aims to achieve through the practice. And then with it being a gift, as you said, or partnership, does it come at a cost?
Bringing pandas here, yes, of course, we want everybody to love pandas. We want everyone to see pandas, right? And to, kind of take the species and conservation in general into their heart. But ultimately, the reason why we bring pandas here is because it enhances the conservation of the species in the wild. And so the agreement includes a fee money that goes back to China directly to benefit, to focus on the conservation of the species.
Pandas have now gone from being an endangered species to being a vulnerable species. Is there a chance that these 2 new pandas will reproduce while they're at the National Zoo? Is that part of the hope here?
It is. And these pandas were specifically selected because they are the best kind of genetic match for each other. And so when they come here, ideally, they'll be compatible behaviorally as well, and they will breed and they will produce more pandas. Because ultimately, the problem with endangered species is there aren't enough of them. And so the goal is always to make more. And there are probably only about 1,800 giant pandas left in the wild. And so by producing more pandas, our goal is to eventually increase the number, not just in zoos, but pandas in the wild in general.
What are some of the considerations in the long-term care of these animals and their potential offspring? Because I do understand that newborn pandas are quite fragile.
Well, They are very fragile, but the great thing is giant panda moms, they're really good moms. So our experience has been that, the pandas are born entirely dependent upon their mothers, but our job is just to take care of the mother so that then she can take care of her offspring. You said it earlier. A lot of people look at pandas and they don't realize how unique and distinct they are, not just as a species, but as individual animals from each other. And so when you take care of pandas, a lot of it is really understanding the individual giant pandas and then making sure that you are, kind of working to take care of their needs. You take care of their health, their nutrition, you make sure they're, kind of physically, intellectually stimulated, but then also understanding them as individuals and working with them that way.
Unfortunately, we won't get to keep them. Does traveling from China to the U.S. and back take a physical and emotional toll on pandas? How have you balanced the ethical considerations here?
Pandas travel in ultimate luxury. So before the pandas will travel, they travel in crates. So these, big crates that the pandas go into, we start training them to go into these crates well before the transport happens. We make it a happy place. Actually, when we were training our pandas to return to China, we had a problem because they would just want to spend all day sitting in their crate eating bamboo. So we create their crates with this like happy little nook, and think of pandas, right? They'll spend time in dens, in caves, in tree hollows. And so a small space to a panda is a safe space. And we make it this happy, small, safe space. When they travel, they get their own flight. So FedEx donates all of their expertise to us. And these pandas travel exclusively on their own jet with a veterinarian, with their keepers, with their favorite foods, with their favorite toys. So with giant pandas in terms of the transit, it's nothing but a positive experience for them. What we try to do, though, is they're going to a different place, so different sights, different sounds, different smells. So we work very hard with the keepers in China and vice versa if the pandas are going from here to China, to make sure that we're prepared to meet those needs. So for example, when the pandas come here, our keepers will travel to China in advance to spend time with the pandas there. So they're familiar faces, voices, sounds. Then when the pandas come here, we will have keepers from China who are here then to do a handoff. So it's kind of a soft transition from one place to the next.
And what can you share about the team that will be caring for the pandas here?
These are trained experts who have dedicated their lives to caring for endangered species. I always think about this, a lot of people have pets and, there's no training. You get a pet, you figure it out, but you love that animal and they love you back. So I think about this, the animals who are here have these incredibly trained staff, not just keepers, veterinarians, nutritionists. One of my favorite things is our scientists. Our chief veterinarian is actually trained in acupuncture and acupressure. So our animals will get these, it's not just Western medicine, but it's Eastern medicine. So the staff here is passionate, dedicated, qualified, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So these animals are coming to some incredible care.
The National Zoo is home to hundreds of wildlife, from the American bison to the Komodo dragon to the TT monkey. Why do giant pandas seem to garner so much attention? And are there other animals you'd like to see them share the spotlight with?
So there are some species that are keystone species. They get the attention of people, and then people will come to the zoo to see a giant panda, and then they'll fall in love with a naked mole rat. So I feel like pandas are kind of like the gateway animal for a lot of people to caring for and appreciating wildlife. I never begrudge the pandas their charisma, because I think that they bring more people into an appreciation of animals in the natural world. I get asked that question all the time. Why do people love pandas so much? And I think it's a few reasons. I think it's because first of all, they're adorable, most obviously, and the cuteness never wears off. So I've been working with these animals for 16 years, and I still will just stop and marvel at the extreme cuteness of these animals. So they're cute, They're rare. They're not just rare in the wild, but they're rare in zoos. When you see one, it's a special opportunity. Most people on the planet won't have an opportunity to see a giant panda, but they're also a success story. Things in the world, especially when you talk about conservation, when you talk about biodiversity, it can be a little intimidating and overwhelming. You feel like, what can I do? How can I help? But giant pandas is a success story. It's a success of conservation. It's a success of people working together to save a species. And when our visitors come here, they are part of that success. When they come here, they see the animals, they care for them, they support the zoo. They are part of the success. So I think it's a combination of those three things.
And finally, is the giant panda cam coming back? How does the National Zoo plan to handle the surge in crowds and desire of so many to see them when they arrive?
So the giant panda camp it's definitely coming back, because we know it's not just the millions of people who come to the zoo, but millions more around the world who want to see our giant pandas. So we will definitely bring that back. We don't want just as many people as possible to see the giant pandas. We want everybody who comes here to have a good experience, a memorable experience. It's memorable because that's our goal. Our goal is to educate people, to inspire people, and ultimately for people to come here and have a good time with their friends, with their family. I don't have the answer yet, but we are planning on ways to make sure that we can accommodate everybody who wants to see the giant pandas.
Well, it's exciting. Brandie, thank you so much for being on The Excerpt.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. I'm Dana Taylor. I'll see you next time.